In this week's episode of the podcast, I am wrapping up my summer knits with a new cast on to try a new to me technique, which is Intarsia knitting. I also sewed in a zipper on a project and that was way harder than expected, and did a little bit of surgery on an old project. So for today's video, I have 2 finished objects, 1 fixed project, a new cast on, and a whip update for you. So get comfy and let's dive in. Hi there and welcome to episode 14 of the podcast. My name's Luisa, but everybody calls me Lu. And here on the channel I post regular podcast episodes every 2 weeks, talking about everything I'm knitting at the moment and my plans for the near future. But lately I've been dipping my toes into other knitting related videos. So last week I released a video talking about all my failed projects ever since my first day of knitting in 2020. And I had so much fun recording that video that I think I'm going to keep doing other knitting related videos, and the video is linked down below in case you want to check it out. It is a lot of fun. But today is a podcast episode and I am wrapping up my summer knits, at least until I can finally make up my mind and decide which patterns and projects I want to cast on in the upcoming season. So my fall knitting plans video is coming next week, hopefully. And let's start with what I'm wearing today, which is actually the first finished object of today's video, and that is the Lusk Tee by Rebecca Clow. Let me put my water down and grab my yarn. This is a top-down construction. It was my first time knitting any of Rebecca Clow's patterns, and I really liked her writing style. The pattern is really well written. It has so many options of bust shaping, sleeve length options, stitch pattern, stripes and all of that, so I had a lot of fun knitting this project. And the yarn I used for this project is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the colorway Plum Rose. It was also my first time knitting with silk, and I've seen some people saying this yarn is very splitty, and I didn't experience any of that, but many people mentioned this yarn is splitty, so I just wanted to share my experience, and I had a wonderful experience knitting with this yarn. But I will say, I've worn this tee 2 times now, I think. Yeah, I think 2 times, and it grows. I can already tell it has a couple of extra centimeters here and there, but I think it only adds to the fit of this project. So let me show you the entire thing. I did a few modifications here and there. Oh, did I show you the back? I did a few modifications here and there. I don't have a lot of positive ease. I have only 5 centimeters of positive ease, but I really like the fit. And I added a little bit of length to the sleeves and also to the body, if I'm not mistaken. I am almost certain I added a little bit of length to the body, and I also shortened the ribbing section by 1 centimeter, I think. Yeah, just 1 centimeter. And other than that, I still have my stitch marker. I always forget to remove my stitch markers after I blocked my finished projects. So let me put it here. And this is it, my Lusk Tee. Let me get my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting anything, and then we can talk about cost and the yarn amount I've used to knit this project. I said this tee grows with blocking, and it does, but at the same time the yarn is lovely next to skin and the fit is really comfortable, and I think I'm going to wear this a lot during the summer. But let's talk about yarn amounts. So I've used 217 grams of Knitting for Olive Pure Silk held single. That equals to 1085 meters. The pattern calls for 882 meters, so I've used quite a bit more yarn than what the pattern calls for, around 200 meters, but I think that makes sense because I added length to the body and also the sleeves, and I went with this stitch pattern, so probably this requires more yarn than a plain stockinette project, but this is what I've used. Now talking about cost, I've paid 34 euros and 54 cents for the yarn, and the pattern cost me 10 euros and 1 cent. So in total this project cost me 44 euros and 55 cents, and I am really happy with the price point of this project. I think I'm going to wear this a lot. It is quite comfortable and airy and breathable, I think, during summer. And I really like the fit, the color, the shoulder detail here. And this is my Lusk Tee. So now let's jump to the second finished object, which is a clutch that I finished. This is the Honey Clutch by PetiteKnit. Let me show you up close. This is the... Did I knit size large? Yeah, this is size large. It is knitted in honeycomb brioche stitch. It was my first time doing this honeycomb brioche thing, and I really liked it. The yarn I used for this project is BC yarn. I just have my leftovers, so I don't have any new skeins to show you. But the yarn I've used for this project is BC yarn Bio Shetland in the colorway 53 Terracotta. Let me show you the label. And I've paired it with one strand of mohair. This is Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the colorway Rust. And this is the pair that I have. I really love these two yarns held together. And this is my finished object. So this clutch has a zipper. I also purchased the zipper and the lining directly from PetiteKnit. This is the chocolate brown, dark chocolate brown, something like that color for the zipper, but you can't barely see it. Now, sewing this zipper was a pain. I did it, I think, 4 or 5 times to get it to look like this. I wanted the double knitting. This is double knitting, by the way. Now, before we talk about the zipper, let's talk a little bit about the construction. So you first cast on stitches for the bottom here. You knit a rectangle piece of double knitting, pick up stitches on all the other sides, and then start working the sides in honeycomb brioche stitch. Let me show you up close. This stitch pattern is so pretty, but at the same time, at least it was my experience, it is very slow going. I felt like this clutch took forever, and it's not even that big. It's just what the size in the pattern is large, but in my opinion, this is what, a size medium, maybe, something like that. And it felt like it took forever. This is a 4-row repeat, so your beginning of round here is visible. There's no way around it. But after I finished sewing this, knitting the sides, I went back with a piece of scrap yarn and I just tightened it up here to try and close the gaps. And I think it looks pretty good, actually. I don't think it's really that noticeable at the beginning of round. So I'm pretty happy with this section. Well, I'm happy with the entire clutch. But talking about deconstruction, you then start knitting the sides in honeycomb brioche stitch. And once you are done with that section, you have live stitches all around the circumference. So you knit these 2 little tabs here, also in double knitting with your live stitches. And once you're done with that, you pick up stitches at the base of half of the tab and work a double knitting placket here where you will attach the zipper later on. So this is what I did. The construction is quite funny. It was my first time sewing a zipper, but it was also my first time doing anything like that, like a clutch or something like that. So it was a lot of fun. At the same time, it was slow going, but I had a lot of fun once I got past the honeycomb brioche stitch section. Now, like I was saying, sewing in the zipper was a pain. I wanted the double knitting fabric to be really close to the, teeth of the zipper? Let's go with teeth. I don't know how to call this. And now I think it looks good, but the first 4 times I was sewing the zipper, I used a sewing pin to put everything in place. And then I went back with a sewing thread to attach the zipper to the double knitting fabric. But once I was done with the sewing section, the sewing part, and I looked at the zipper, you could see half a centimeter, 3 millimeters or so of the zipper fabric. It was, I don't know if I can show you this, like this. And I didn't really like the look of it. I wanted things to look really neat, I guess I would say. But at the same time, I want a completely functional zipper. So in the end, that's what I got here. But just to say, I had to pin the double knitting fabric almost on top of the metal teeth of the zipper. And then once I was finished with the sewing section and I looked at the zipper, you could really see that things had moved around a little bit, and this is the result that I got in the end. And talking about the lining now, I just followed PetiteKnit video on how to sew in a lining. So this is called a invisible stitch, I don't know, it's the invisible thing like she calls. And this is what I have here. I think it looks pretty good. But I don't know, but at the same time, I don't really mind because it's on the inside. And before I sewed in the lining around the zipper here, I just stitched it all together on the 8 sides of the clutch, just to make sure that my lining isn't going to stick out of the clutch some way. But this is what I have. I have no idea what I'm going to put inside. My first idea was to use this as a notion spout, but I think it's too big for a notion spout. But I don't know, we'll see. This is my stitch marker that I also forgot to remove, and I didn't block my clutch, and that's okay. It's just a clutch. Talking about cost and amount of yarn I've used for this project now, let's go with the main yarn, the BC Garn Bio Shetland one. I've used 51 grams of yarn, that equals to 280 meters. That is almost one ball of yarn, one skein. The skein comes in 50 grams. I've used 51 grams. So I think I could get away with just one skein of yarn if I just skipped the last half a centimeter on the brioche, honeycomb brioche stitch thing, and then I think I could get away with just one skein. But that is a nice tip for the future in case I want to knit a second honey clutch. I don't think I will. I don't think I need two, but in case I want to gift one or anything like that, that is a good tip. And talking about the mohair, I've used 31 grams of mohair, that equals to 270 meters. Now, the pattern calls for around 49 to 63 grams of yarn, main yarn, and 31 grams of mohair. That is exactly what I used. And talking about cost, I've paid 17 grams. I've paid 17 euros and 94 grams for the yarn. The pattern cost me 6 euros and 98 cents. I've also paid for the zipper, which cost me 4 euros and 24 cents. And the lining cost me 6 euros and 80 cents. No, 6 euros and 8 cents. So in total, this project cost me 34 euros and 74 cents. And I am really happy with it. I do think this is a lovely gift knit, but at the same time, it's a lot of work doing all of that honeycomb brioche stitch. So I don't know, in my opinion, it has to be someone very special. But this is what I have. This is my final project, and I am really happy with it. So now let's talk about my fixed project, which is a really old shawl that I've knitted 3 years ago. I've been knitting for 5 years, so having a 3-year-old project is really old. In my opinion. So this is a 100% mohair shawl that I've knitted 3 years ago or so. This has no pattern. This is just garter. No, it's not garter. This is stockinette knitted flat. So it looks like garter, and it's just a really big rectangle. Nothing really fancy in terms of shape or anything. But I had a problem with my bind off. If you watched my failed projects video, my knits gone wrong video. You've already seen this project. After I recorded the video, I was itching to do something about this project and fix the mistake, which was my bind off edge. So this is a mohair only project show that I've used 6 different colorways of mohair that I got from my local yarn shop. And let's go with the cast on edge first. So the cast on edge has a lot of stretch. I think I did a backwards loop cast on. I think that's what I did. I don't think I knew how to do a long tail cast on at the time, but this is what I did here. So the bind off edge is quite stretchy, but my bind off edge, I just did a regular bind off edge. You knit one stitch, knit the second stitch, pull the first stitch over and over the second stitch end of your needles. So the bind off edge was really tight, and when I wore the shawl, you could see that my bind off, my cast on edge was all the way down here, and my bind off edge was like this. You could see this weird thing going on here because the bind off edge had 0 give to it. So I wanted to rip off that bind off and replace it with a stretchy bind off, but I couldn't for the life of me unravel my bind off. The stitches were all stuck to each other. I couldn't even find which side was the last stitch that I've bound off. So I just decided well, I cut it off. I just cut off my bind off, unraveled a couple of rows to have enough yarn to do a new bind off, and this time I knitted a stretchy bind off. I just did the yarn over in between stitches and I bound that off together with the stitch that I had on my left hand needle. So this is what I have here. It is not perfect. I was worried in doing so this last stripe here, this last color, wouldn't be as wide as the other stripes in the shawl. I don't think you can see any difference. I think it looks like the rest of the shawl, and it isn't as stretchy as the cast on edge still, but at the same time I think this is way more wearable than it was before. This is what I did. I just fixed an old project and I am way happier with this project now. So talking about my first cast on, no, let's go with the whip update before we talk about a cast on. This is the Stripe Hype sweater by Veronika Lindberg that I've cast on, I think 2 episodes ago, and this is what I have so far. I really love the fit and the look of the stripes. The yarn I'm using for this project is a whole bunch of Husqvarna Super Soft that I had in my stash. I am using 4 different colorways. So I have Jasper, this dark red shade color, cranberry, let me put this here, cranberry, yes, which is this dark pink, amber, which is this yellowy orange. It is orange, but I think it has a yellow undertone to it. And my main yarn, my main color is also Husqvarna Super Soft in the colorway Oatmeal. I wouldn't go with all of these colors together for a stripe hype if I was planning on casting on a project like this, but at the same time I really like the look of these colors together. I just have 3 different contrasting colors, so I am alternating colors instead of doing blocks of colors like the pattern suggests. But at the same time I am really happy with the look so far. I just have one beige striped left to knit before I am ready to start my, I think it's twisted rib, one by one twisted rib. So I just have one beige striped left to work before I start my twisted rib. This is a drop shoulder construction. I am really happy, like I said, and my hair got stuck in my necklace. I am really happy with the fit, but I had plans of finishing that project for today's video, but that didn't happen because my honey clutch took forever. But I will finish that for the next episode. And now let's talk about the new cast on, which is quite fun. I started a gift knit for my little niece, and this is going to be so messy to show you. I have 3 balls of yarn attached to the project, and this is the Always Forever Unicorn Sweater by Wool and Beyond. The name is so big. I just call this my unicorn sweater for my little niece. She is 3 years old now, but I am knitting size 4-5 years old, which I believe is 4-5 years old. The pattern comes in centimeters in terms of sizing, so I am knitting size 110 to 116 centimeters, and from what I understand, this is 4 to 5 years old, but I am off gauge like I always am, so I think I will end up with a size 3, but we'll see. This is it. This is Intarsia knitting, and I am having so much fun with this project. The yarn I'm using for this is Drops Air. Let me get the label. The yarn is Drops Air in 2 different colorways. The white one is colorway 01 Off-White, and the gray one is colorway 26 Beige. The colorway name is beige, but in my opinion, this is gray. This is gray with speckles, with little sections of beige, but I wouldn't call this beige at all. In my opinion, this is gray. I always have this problem when I am buying drops yarn online. Let me just get the label there. I always have this problem when I'm buying drops yarn online. Every time I get the ball of yarn in my hands, I never agree to the shade, to the color that I saw online. I always feel like it's different. But anyway, for this project, I don't think it really matters a main color beige or gray. But if it was for another project, I think I wouldn't really like buying something called beige to receive a gray yarn. My mom says this is beige in her opinion, but to me this is gray. Let me show you. Oh, I have 2 balls of the gray yarn attached. So this is the contrast that I have. Now, one thing I will say about this yarn, it is really lovely. This is a blow yarn. Let me get the label. This is a medium thick blow yarn made of baby alpaca and merino wool. So this is a 65% alpaca, 28% polyamide and 7% wool blow yarn. So I think this is a polyamide chain tube and wool and alpaca fibers are blown into it. It is my first time knitting with this type of yarn and I really like it, but I will say I am using 2 different colorways from the same yarn, so both colorways are Drops Air, and I will say the white colorway, the yarn is softer, like way softer, and I feel like it's thinner than the gray one or beige, whatever you want to call this. I think the gray one is still pretty soft, but it isn't nearly as soft as the white one. And I feel like the white one is also thinner. If you look at the unicorn, you can see the stitches feel like they are more open. It is a more open fabric than the gray body of the project. But I still like it. I am really loving this project and I really like the yarn. And this is Intarsia knitting. Like I said, it is my first time knitting with Intarsia. So I have 3 different balls of yarn attached to this project. And this is, drop shoulder, I think? You first cast on stitches for the back, increase to get the shoulder detail here, place your stitches on hold, and then you turn your work and pick up stitches on both sides, knit the fronts and all of that. The construction is quite simple and it's what we are used to, but the fun thing is the unicorn Intarsia pattern section. And it is quite fun. I think I really love Intarsia actually, and I think I like it more than I do color work, like regular stranded color work. You don't have to worry about floats. You don't have to worry about your tension. You don't have to worry about so many things, but at the same time you end up with something that is really, really fun. The only thing I don't like is Intarsia is messy. In my opinion, at least, it is so messy. You have so many different balls of yarn attached to the project. I had heard of Intarsia before, but this is my first time actually doing it. And I saw a couple of days ago a channel called Nimble Needles. It was an entire masterclass on Intarsia knitting. And go check it out in case you're curious. The video is wonderful. He explains Intarsia and all the ins and outs and tips and tricks of Intarsia knitting wonderfully. I really enjoyed that video, and I just watched that video and started my sweater, and I think it's looking great. So go check it out. It is a wonderful resource if you're interested in Intarsia knitting. But from what I understand, every time you have a color change on the chart, this is charted by the way, just the unicorn pattern here, every time there is a color change, you have to attach a new ball of yarn, even if you're knitting with the same color that you already have in your project. So now I have 3 different balls of yarn, 2 grays and 1 white. But when I was knitting this section here, I still was working on the horn, and I also had this little bit of what? Ear? I hope this is an ear. I don't know. But I had 5 different balls of yarn attached to this project, and let me tell you, it was messy. But at the same time, it was just for a few rows, 10 rows or something like that. It was a pain, but it was for a short time. But I think I will get to another messy section in a little bit, because I have to finish the face here of the unicorn. I think I will have to attach 2 new balls of yarn, but I don't have so many different balls of yarn. So my idea was to pick up 1 strand from the inside and 1 strand from the outside of the same ball of yarn, and that's why it got so messy so quickly. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend picking up 1 strand from the inside and 1 from the outside. Just go with separate and individual balls of yarn. I think it makes knitting Intarsia way easier. But anyway, I really love the look. Did I show you up close? The unicorn. I think it looks good. I can see some room for improvement here on the horn. I think maybe I can go back later on with a tapestry needle and do a little bit of management on the yarn. Take a little bit of excess yarn from here to the other stitches. But for now, I think it looks pretty good. Once the chart here, the unicorn figure is finished, I will go back and attach a 3D mane and embroidered eyes. So I think this will look so cute on her. But like I said, this is a new to me technique that I am really enjoying so far. And this is such a quick and easy knit, but at the same time really fun. I am knitting this on a 5mm, and it is a kid size, so this project goes really quickly and I am having a lot of fun with it. But this is what I have in terms of projects. I have just a little bit of acquisition to show you today. It is getting really dark. The sky is so gray. I think it's going to rain buckets today, but let's keep going. Once I finished my 3 December bows that are now on the wall. I forgot to show you last podcast episode, but they are on the wall and they look so cute. I had one light blue ball of yarn left untouched from that project, so I went back to my craft store and exchanged that for another ball of yarn. So I got Merino Regia Premium Merino Yak 4 ply. This is colorway, where's the colorway number? This is colorway 7508. It is a pink purpley color, really lovely. This is fingering weight, 58% wool, 28% polyamide, and 14% yak. I'm really excited to try out this yarn. It is a new to me fiber. I've never knitted with yak. Yeah. And I am really excited to try this out. I think I will use this for a shawl. I don't know why I'm holding this in my forehead. I think I'm going to use this for a shawl, or paired with mohair maybe. Maybe not, I don't know. Or maybe for a cute pair of socks with contrasting toes and heel. And heel, I think it will look cute, but I don't know. I got this and I wanted to show you. And I also got a little new cute set of stitch markers from Zostrene Grene. I am aware this probably isn't the most, good quality stitch markers, but I don't care. This is just stitch markers. They're just to have fun when I am knitting. And this is a little, I just attached to my ball of yarn to make it easier to show you. This is a little cherry. I think it's a cherry, right? I think it is. They are so cute. I got a set of 10 of these stitch markers, and I wanted to try this because they have this really big ring that, let me put my yarn there. They have this really big ring that opens. So I've seen people talking about this type of closure for stitch markers, and they say they prefer this when compared to this regular, claw clasp, lobster clasp or something like that. I don't know if the camera is focusing or not, but I have a few of these beaded stitch markers with this lobster clasp, and I decided to try this wider ring. And I can see why people are always talking about this type of closure. It is so much easier to get into a stitch and pick up one strand, to place a stitch marker. And yeah, I agree with everybody. I prefer this type of stitch marker rather than the lobster clasp. I don't know if this is the proper name or not, but anyway. Now I think this is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more cozy knitting updates. Ring the bell and give it a like. It really helps the channel and YouTube really likes it, and I really appreciate. And you can expect my fall knitting plans video coming to you next week. I just have to make up my mind and decide which patterns I want to cast on next. I have so many options that I can choose from. But this is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!